Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. Today we're exploring a project that is equal parts hilarious, bizarre, and incredibly poignant. The animated feature film, Mars. This film marks the final project from the legendary cult comedy troupe, The Whitest Kids U'Know, serving as a bittersweet and brilliant capstone to the legend of the late, beloved Trevor Moore. Joining me to discuss this Herculean task that it took to bring this vision to the screen is the film's director and producer, Sevan Najarian. He's been a vital force in the alternative media landscape for years, and in this episode we trace his fascinating career path, from his early days of getting into the director's chair for animation to his involvement with the irreverent and influential world of Channel Zero. We also dive into the scrappy and often painstaking labor that was the production of Mars. Conceptualized over a decade ago, the film follows Kyle, a man who enters a contest to go to the Red Planet mostly to escape his impending wedding, only to find himself stranded with a crew of lunatics on a ship that is anything but luxury. With an 8-city screening tour kicking off on February 20th at participating Alamo Drafthouse locations and a wider theatrical release on March 13th, there has never been a better time to celebrate the return of The Whitest Kids U'Know, or WKUK, or WCUK? That has to be intentional. So let's get into my conversation with Sevan about the decade-long journey into the Red Planet, the evolution of his career, and why this story is more relevant today than ever before. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. How are you today?
Hey, good. How's it going?
Oh, good. Oh man, anybody that's a Dark Tower fan, I'm okay with. So just
you saw that.
right. I will. That Wolves of Kala will catch my eye anytime.
Yeah.
The font on that, so it's impossible to recognize that one. So
Yeah, because that's the one that came out like way later, right?
yeah, exactly. When did you first, just to start off on a complete side tangent? When did you get into those?
When I was really young, I got into them, and then so I read all the books before we even knew Wolves of the Collar was coming out.
Yeah.
So probably back in high school, I was interested, and then I finally got through them right before the year 2000 or so.
Okay, yeah. Have you gone back and reread them yet? Or
No, but I'd love to. Yeah, I'd really love to.
I every couple years, at the very least, I have to reread Drawing of Three. I think that is just one of my favorite books ever written.
Yeah.
It's a thing that made me a reader, probably more than anything else.
That's the one with the lobstrosities, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
I always remember that. Yeah.
it feels like almost like a 70s crime drama with like sci-fi elements to it.
Yeah.
It has a way different propulsion than the rest of the books, with like the New York in the 70s 80s time frame and all
That's kind of what the movie was based off of, that book mostly, right?
I have no idea, because when I saw the movie, it felt like there were elements of the Dark Tower, the novel, the actual Dark Tower book itself, and then there was all these deviations with elements of the Gunslinger, but it's almost like it took place after in the second cycle, I think, is what they were trying to do. I don't know. So
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed with the movie, and it bummed me out because I was like, why did they botched it, so I'll never get to see it again.
Supposedly Flanagan's working on it.
Yeah, I saw that there was somebody working on some.
I guess so. I mean, if anybody that can figure out how to do Gerald's Game as a film can crack that one, that's all inside somebody's head, they can definitely. They got my vote on the Dark Tower. So. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So then how did you end up getting hooked up with The Whitest Kids U'Know? Because this is a project that's been in the works for the better part of a decade, I think.
Yeah, it's been almost 14 years since
I
started writing it. And yeah, they've been sitting on this thing for a long time. And originally it was supposed to be a multi-episode thing that was supposed to be part of their TV show, and they were going to try to slip it in as like, here's a recurring sketch, and then eventually it's going to be combined as like one full feature, the same way they did Civil War on Drugs with their show. So that was originally the plan for it, but their show ended, but then this script kept coming up for them, and they kept doing table reads and refining it and keep going back to it. And then finally the pandemic happened, and they contacted me. I mean, we're all sitting around doing nothing, so it's like perfect timing to make this into a cartoon. But originally it was supposed to be live action, and so a lot of things had to change for that to work out. But I was working with Trevor Moore for a while on his Disney shows. So I'm a visual effects artist, and an animator, and I worked on Walk the Prank and Just Roll With It, which are shows that he helped create, and worked on for like, I don't know, 5 years or 6 years or so. And so I worked with this stuff with him on that. And I also met Sam Brown at Channel 101, which is something I've been doing since the beginning of Channel 101 for almost 20 years. And so they knew my work from that. I worked on like House of Cosby's and stuff like that.
Right.
Other cartoons I've directed over the years. So they kind of got together, and it's like, Sevan would probably do it, and he's probably not doing anything. So they contacted me. They're like, we're raising some money. I think we could do it for $300,000. Do you think you can do it for $300,000? Let's try. And so we just started it without the money even being raised fully yet. So
how arbitrary is that number at that point?
It was super arbitrary.
Okay.
I guess I'm not gonna take a director's fee, I guess, until it gets sold. So I'll just take a percentage. And it ended up being like, it costs like twice as much.
Of course.
Twice as long. And that's kind of the story of my life when I'm like, I could do it for $100. Actually cost me $200. But yeah, it's such an arbitrary number, but I think that's the number that they were on pace to, like they were making like $30,000 a month or something on their Twitch streams, just trying to get to that $300,000 mark. So for me, I was like, I've made cartoons for that cheap.
Yeah.
But I had to hire artists that didn't have the most experiences, so I had to discover artists, hire interns, teach people how to animate, that kind of thing, animate things myself. So I really stretched that budget, made it work. And eventually they were able to raise a lot more than that, and we put it to good use for sure.
Do you find working with people who aren't as polished, that don't have the experience, people that are really looking for a break, that they end up innovating and creating new ideas, or is it more of a headache and frustration?
It's a little of both.
Okay.
When you're working with people that don't know what they're doing, you discover hidden talents for sure. Because I had my art director. He didn't have a lot of experience, but he did have experience in coding and using After Effects. And so those two things together, he pioneered this method of rigging characters and allowing the animation team to have these tools that made it so much faster to animate. And so we kind of pioneered this way of just like putting all the assets into one 3D way. So it was a lot easier to animate things that way, knowing that you didn't have to like drop this asset in and then move that, and then drop this asset in and move that. So you literally just had to use sliders and different tools that he made, and it made it so much faster. So you discover people that know things, and like, I like to wear a lot of hats, and I like to hire people that wear a lot of hats. And when you hire somebody that's new and young and has a lot of energy, you discover that they want to learn different things, and they become good at those things. And a lot of the employees I had during that ended up going off to work on Rick and Morty and Titmouse and other things. So a lot of my artists got the experience with me and then had the resume to move on.
So then you're somebody who likes to wear a lot of hats. Is that something that was born out of necessity, or something that, okay.
Yes, necessity, absolutely. Like, I even act as necessity. So, that's something I learned at Channel 101. If you're not familiar with Channel 101,
I am, yeah.
It's a monthly film festival where you get to submit a pilot episode of what you think should be on TV, and the audience gets to vote on if the pilot should move on to more episodes, and that happens monthly. And so I got involved with it a long time ago with my friend Justin Roiland, who is the voice of Rick and Morty.
Yep.
and my friend Abed, who's the inspiration behind the character Abed in Community. And we all kind of moved down to LA together, started submitting to Channel 101, making cartoons and stuff like that. We made things like House of Cosby's, and we worked on Acceptable TV, which was like the VH1 version of Channel 101. And that's where Dan Harmon saw our talents and started using us and stuff like that. And they created Rick and Morty from there. But like, I think as a necessity, I had to learn how to do pretty much everything for Channel 101. Write, direct, shoot. When I moved here, I thought I was just going to be like a cinematographer, and I ended up becoming a visual effects artist. And Rob Schraub, who's one of the creators of Channel 101, hired me right away as a visual effects artist for Sarah Silverman program, and that just pushed me right into like, I guess I have to learn this job, and I learned how to do it, and I did some impressive things in his opinion, in my opinion too.
Yeah.
And that just kind of created a career for me, doing visual effects, and eventually came back to doing cartoons and directing and that sort of thing. But I really attribute a lot of that success to Channel 101 because you're monthly making things, and if you don't make it well, the audience tells you right away, and you get to adjust and learn something new. And like, oh, I guess I should buy a new microphone, or I should really mix that thing better, or I'd like to learn how to do this effect or whatever. So, or I'd like to do the Roger Rabbit effect, like that kind of stuff is very much by necessity because Channel 101 kind of requires you to like reinvent yourself.
Well, and I think there's something that's really important about the impermanence of a program like that. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and there's a 48-hour film festival where you have to conceive, execute, and deliver the film 48 hours later. And those kinds of ideas, because for me personally, get so married to this making perfection or getting an idea to exactly where I need to do, like, I get so lost in the minutia. Sometimes you just need to go out and make shit and make something happen. And I feel like that's why Channel 101, the last 25 years of comedy, is all tied to Channel 101 in one way or another. I mean, like you just offhanded just mentioned Rob Schraub, and you think of all like the places that guy has touched in the last 20 years, and it's incredible. It's just all those people. If you enjoy anything from Adult Swim, you're probably looking at the work that was created by somebody from Channel 101 at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely an aesthetic that was created. I don't know what it is. It's a nostalgia for old media. A do-it-yourself nature. I don't know. Like, there's a lot that came out of Channel 101 that's definitely a brand, and I learned a lot from it, and I hold up that brand even to today. Like, I run the shows still. I help facilitate the monthly screenings to today, as just donating my time to it because I feel like there needs to be a space like this, especially now with all the studios going away or not giving any money to projects anymore. There needs to be a space for people to be like, I'm sick of people telling me not to make something. I want a space that's encouraging me to make something, and to fail, a place to fail, a place to get rejected. And so I really enjoy Channel 101 in that way. It's a love-hate relationship at this point, but now that the system is coming back around to like everybody wants to do DIY and everybody wants to do indie films, I'm coming back to my roots.
Well, if you look at this last weekend, even the top 10 at the box office, like 3 of those movies were pseudo independent films that had relatively small budgets, and the major studios aren't making things like that anymore. And it's pretty impressive to see there's an appetite for it. And I think that never went away. It's just the studio system lost itself in trying to chase down the next piece of IP that wore a cape. And I love that stuff as much as the next guy, but we lost a whole bunch of really interesting, unique voices in great films in the process of doing that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're referring to this, but one of them, friends of mine, Nirvana, the band, the show, just came out with it. I
interviewed them last week, and I love that movie so much. It's literally, it's incredible. I need to see the special features to know how they did that shit on the CN Tower. It's incredible.
I actually haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm a big fan of the show. Matt Johnson worked on a couple things with us, and those are great guys. And they were coming up around the same time as us. In fact, I think we were talking to each other, and we were fans of each other back then. And I think Matt even said one of my lines that I did in the Channel 101 show in the Nirvana the Band show. So it was like this weird back and forth thing that was interesting. But those guys are great, and I'm glad they're making movies. And yeah, that's a good testament as to like no studio is gonna like just greenlight that movie. I feel like they just made it themselves. Really, like they came up with them themselves. I mean, they're getting more and more popular, obviously because of the BlackBerry movie and stuff. But like. But yeah, like I like to see more of that, and I think there's going to be more of that in the future.
I didn't tell this to them, so I'll say it to you because it's embarrassing to say it to somebody. But I honestly feel like Glenn Howard, his performance in BlackBerry was Oscar worthy. He was so fucking good in that movie. I was just floored by it. So and I think I prefer the series version of it a little bit more. But yeah, I adore that film. So it's great stuff. But for Mars. It's surprising that this was originally conceived as a live action element to it, because it feels like the scope of what you're doing here to have pulled this off. It seems like this would have been very expensive, or did they open up the scope for it when they decided to do this as a animated film?
Yeah. So it was originally supposed to be live action. In fact, my wife originally was supposed to be doing the miniatures for it.
Oh, wow.
She used to date Sam Brown. And so they already had plans. They already had people ready in the wings to make miniatures. And like, so they thought green screen, which actually for me, because I'm a visual effects artist and visual effects director, that would have been a great challenge as well. Like I could see the script not needing to be fully compromised to make it live action as well. I have a green screen in my backyard.
Fair enough.
Let's shoot it and make it work. Channel 101 style, it would have been a different thing. But ultimately, making it a cartoon made it more confident for them to not have to cut anything out. And yeah, we don't have to hire a bunch of extras and dress them all up and put them in a crowd and all that stuff, or we don't have to do blood work, reset that, and we just have a couple artists draw all the frames and we're done. So we don't have to get cleaned up.
Well, you look at that opening sequence of it, and it's like the ghost of Mars, like the kind of heads explosions things that are happening in those suits. And to pull that off, I guess you either go with you're doing the Dark Star version of that, or you're doing like the super polished version of it. And I guess there is room for a Dark Star version of it that I hadn't even considered.
And I'm a big fan of like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place and just like the comedy of the low budget aspect of it, and I think that probably would have been part of it if we made it live action. But I was at the time heavily into cartoons and making cartoons, so it was kind of perfect timing to just right in the middle of the pandemic. We couldn't really be in the same room together for a while, so why not make it a cartoon? Because I could just hire artists that sit at their computers and they send me their work. So it was a lot easier just to coordinate a full cartoon version of the movie, even though that took longer than live action probably would have.
So for you, what do you think is the emotional anchor of this film? Because I do think it actually has a little bit more heart than people might expect or even fully realize, that when you're first watching this, it is as broad as this type of comedy can possibly get. It's offensive, but it also has these beats in it that I think are very grounded in human experience as opposed to just trying to shock.
Yeah, I like the idea of the relationship between the main character and his fiance.
Yeah.
Because it was written by men who obviously had an amalgam of a girlfriend in their mind when they were writing this character for Candace. And in fact, we cut out a lot of scenes because it was like, she is not a sympathetic character. We're making her look like a really terrible.
There was a worse version.
Yeah, there was definitely a worse version. We cut out a lot of screaming and stuff. So, but I like the relationship because it ultimately shows that he was careless with the relationship.
Yep.
Like she might have been crazy or whatever, but like he was definitely careless with the relationship. He was clueless. He didn't know how to handle a woman like that. In fact, without being a spoiler, he was obsessed with this doll.
Yeah.
And that clearly showed he wasn't emotionally responsible for a relationship. And I think that's where we see all of that play out when she comes to Mars and he's freaking out and he's like, I thought I escaped this whole obligation. And like, he's the kind of person that just doesn't know what he wants. And I get frustrated with, like, I watch a lot of reality TV shows and I'm like, I get frustrated with men that are dating these women on reality TV shows and they just don't know what they want. And they're like making all these mistakes because of that. And it's like, we really nailed that with this character, Kyle, in the movie. So hopefully it doesn't look like we did a female character wrong in this sense. Like there's a reckoning for her because he really is unemotional, or he's just not in touch with his emotions. And I think a lot of men and a lot of the fans who are like, grew up loving the comedy can probably identify with this with Kyle.
I would think so. And I mean, there's an element to, I felt a little bit of a mirror here from my early 20s. The idea that I was emotionally unavailable, but I didn't have the intestinal fortitude to say what I wanted, which is really his problem, that even if he doesn't know what he wants, he won't say, you know what, I don't know what I want. So he's with a strong person and he just goes along with whatever she says. And he knows that's not what he wants, but he won't say that. So he literally goes to Mars, which is just that the absurd lengths that men will go to not talk about their feelings.
And he claims to be the victim.
Of course. I mean, that's right back to my early 20s again.
Yeah, for sure. And like anybody that hasn't gotten therapy could definitely identify with that. Anybody that has gotten therapy could probably identify their past version of that, because for me, I definitely identified with that version, because I at a time thought I was being assaulted by emotions. I'm just not taking care. I'm not observing. I'm not, being careful with the women I want to be around. So
that's it. That's 100% what that is. So yes, I think that this is a two-way street as far as that's concerned. And in fact, he's by far the worst character. It's just not as obvious immediately, unless you're coming at this with some perspective that I could immediately smell my own. Where it's just, I'm like, oh, I know who this guy is. This is far too familiar. And it's that thing, these anecdotes that I used to tell, because I'm 49 now, that I used to tell even 15 years ago. It probably came across more as pointing the finger. Then maybe around 10 years ago or so, I started realizing, oh, no, the whole time it was me. I was the one consistent through all of this. So, and thank God I figured it out a couple years into my marriage. So, and we're much happier now for that.
Yeah, I like the idea of like a character being super defensive. It's like the wrong thing to do in that situation. Do not be defensive, anybody. If you're being assaulted, air quotes, if you're being assaulted by your girlfriend's emotions, don't defend yourself.
So then what's the reaction been like to this so far? Because this is, I don't know. I found this to be just a really nice palate cleanser. That I do steep myself in independent film. I watch a lot of smaller budget things, but I haven't seen something like this in a long time. So this was just something that felt very warm and familiar, but something I definitely hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten some mixed reactions for sure. Like we premiered at Tribeca back in 2024, and the press screening was very interesting to read the feedback about, and a lot of it was like, I guess the fans will like this. So to me, I was like, okay, I guess we're niche comedy, which is kind of where we thought we were. We're niche comedy, like cartoons that are not necessarily beautiful looking, but it's telling a story, and part of our story is how it got made, and so I think it really shows it was a labor of love to make it. It's like, it definitely was an indie movie. I hired all my Channel 101 friends to work on it, so we really put a lot into it, and I feel like it shows. But yeah, I don't think it's broad. I don't think a lot of people will understand the comedy necessarily, but I mean, dirty comedy, shocking humor. If you're into Adult Swim, then you're gonna like it. And there's a lot of Easter eggs for the fans. And in fact, the fans helped make it. So most of the credits is the fans. But yeah, definitely niche comedy, sci-fi. You know, I guess it could stand next to a Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that it reminds them like early internet Channel 101 style, like do-it-yourself cartoon style. So I think the cartoon world might appreciate it in that way.
I think you could go beyond that. I honestly think that you don't have to have that narrow of parameters around it to enjoy the film. I feel totally comfortable showing this movie to my wife, and I think she's going to enjoy the hell out of this thing. We haven't watched it together yet, but I fully plan on sitting down and watching this with her so she can openly laugh at me.
Nice. Yeah.
But like, it's even something like the strip club sequence. It's at the very beginning of the movie where you're subverting an expectation and then re-subverting it again. And it's like these little twists like that, where it's never the exact thing that you think it is. And then it pulls back around to something very crass in the end. So it's like, it kind of, I don't know. I really appreciate that about the humor here. And you talk about the animation not being like polished and beautiful, but to me, I personally think sometimes the lines that might not be perfect, that's where the beauty is. If you look at the Wilson brothers, who's the one that everyone thinks the most handsome is? It's Owen, the one with the broken nose. And sometimes it's the broken nose that makes you the most handsome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So imperfections to me are charming. So
yeah, to me too. I'm a perfectionist, but I try to temper that with a good enough attitude, because if you keep trying to make something perfect, it just turns into something you probably didn't want, and you're taking way too long to do it. And I think that's where my 5-minute pilot idea comes in, is just to get it done, like by necessity. Like, we just need to finish this, and it's good enough. So stop stressing over that artist and stop stressing over that background guy, and like, don't worry about how many colors you're using. Just like, it matches, it's fine. Like, I don't care that this artist draws the character different than this artist. I don't mind. And it definitely shows, but at the same time, like, we had a small budget and we had very little time. Well, we had a lot of time in the end, but it really was a good enough phase that we had to go through.
Well,
and yeah, it's charming, I guess.
Well, think about, and there's some of my favorite gags in here are these little visual things that you have, where something like the news anchor, the way that the jowls that he has, the way that they tuck over the shirt and his chin and everything, the way his neck is skinny but fat at the same time. And it's the design, the character design, that I'm just looking at this and
neck. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And it's just something that looks like there was an actual conversation about what this guy should look like, or somebody just ran with it. And I, for one, it's catching my eye. Or the way that the dog has the eyeball on the side of his head. It's just these little moments that you see that just, I appreciate those things.
Yeah, I think that's just us trying to subvert what would be expected on a polished project, I guess. Yeah, so I'm not trying to make something perfectly on model all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I like stories where there's always something beneath the surface, something to be revealed. So you have to have that Band-Aid or that scar that you could scratch at to see beneath the surface. So yeah, I like to make things look just not right. And I think that's comedy, and it's also intriguing to see where the story can go. It's just little tidbits to show in the art where the story can unfold. But yeah, for this movie, I wish we could have done more more animation, more like fluid animation would have been nice.
Sure.
But the art style, I love it, and I'm glad the way it turned out.
You should. This is definitely one to be proud of. So I know we're getting close to time. So what's going to come next for you? What do you have come down the pike? Because I have no idea. You literally do everything. So are you finally going to get around to cinematography at this point?
Yeah, I shot a documentary of a friend of mine who passed, but when he was around, he had 20 cats in a small apartment, and he fed a bunch of cat colonies. And so I followed him around with a camera, and I have a ton of footage, and I'm just now starting to put it together. So and he had a really hard time connecting with people, and he hated people, and eventually succumbed to an addiction to heroin and
Sure.
died alone in a hotel. And then all his cats were left abandoned in his apartment. So I'm working on a documentary like that, which is another thing where it's like something on the surface is not right. Something below that surface is revealing of a bigger human nature. So I love documentaries. So I got a couple of them working. And I got a couple of feature films that I'm writing that are, I don't know. I don't know what you'd call it. I guess dark comedy.
Okay. Yeah. The documentary sounds fascinating. That idea of just, I do, and I'm sorry for your loss for your friend, but the idea of a story like that you can tell that there's, I assume when you do scratch that, that surface itch that you're talking about and you get beneath and there's something that you're telling about a darker truth or what that thing is. And there's something that we can take away from that. The, person with the 20 cats that's in the apartment by themselves that we might pass judgment on, and that there's a full human that's in there that we need to pause and think about the way that we immediately judge and kind of think about what is the world that surrounds that. So I'm just from what you've said, I'm in. I would love to see this film.
Nice. Yeah. It's definitely something I've been working on for a while. And it was very difficult to follow him around. And I kept saying, like, I must be a bad documentarian because I'm not catching, because I had to get around him saying, like, hey, shoot this thing. And I'm like, you're not the director. Stop talking to the camera. I'm just going to observe you. It's like he tried to really curate his persona on camera. And I tried to capture all the moments where he wasn't trying to curate. And I think there's some good footage in there, and there's some good work that he did. And I feel sad that he wasn't able to continue that work because I don't think anybody else does that. Like, he literally woke up 2 a.m, 3 nights a week, and went out and just fed colonies. And
Jesus, dude.
Them. So, like, after he passed, like, who's doing that?
There's people that do those kinds of things that I'm just absolutely floored by. There's a woman a couple miles north of here, like 20, 30 miles, that just has a pig rescue for some reason. And it's just this little lady out in the middle of the desert who's just taking care of people that adopt potbelly pigs. And then they realize they get too big for them. They love them when they're little and cute, but I guess she just takes them in pretty much from anywhere. And they just send them from all over the place. And it's just, there's people that have that calling where I don't have that greater purpose in my life. And
yeah, my sister had a potbelly pig. That happened. Yeah, I'm glad there's certain people that do take those disadvantaged animals in. I really got into cat rescue for a while too. Of it, so.
Well, is that something that for this particular film that you think you're going to be able to get this released or put everything together, or where are you at in that process? No,
I'm right now. I'm still working on just post production. I'm still kind of trying to figure out the story because there's so much that went into it. I'm trying to figure out like how to shape the story because there's so much footage.
Of course,
and like I got to sit down interview with them, and so like how do I tell that part of the story? And I always hate documentaries that have the director in them. So and he refers to me a lot, so I feel like I might have to put myself in as a character. So I'm still in that process of like, what is this thing?
The thing that you hate, though, keep in mind, because I have things that I hate, but one of the greatest pleasures I have is when there's a thing I hate in film and then somebody does it a way I had never considered before. And I go, nope, that's how you do it. Apparently the coming of age story is not done yet. There is something else you can tell within that. And so there are documentaries where you do have the filmmaker in it. And it just makes sense to have them in there. I mean, where would we be without Werner Herzog's, without his voiceover at this point?
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So I'll keep that in mind.
But thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you, and congratulations on the film. It was a special one.
Thank you so much. Yeah, awesome.
All right. Take care, man. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Get cell phone ring lit up on a nice night. I gotta say you got a cheese grater, boys. Acting like I meant to hurt. Screaming like I meant to hurt. But bitch, I don't work for you anymore. Bitch, I don't work for you anymore. And it's hot inside of the sun. I could put you there. and it's hot inside of the sun, I would put you there. Yeah. And it's hot inside of the sun, I would put you there. And it's hot inside of the sun, I would put you there.